We have for the City of Peekskill Youth Bureau, we have Mr. Dale Francis. For Hudson River Healthcare, we have Rosa O'Leary, and we also have Susie McDonald. For MVP Healthcare, we have Oscar Briones. For Hope Store, we have Maya Lloyd. And for the City of Peekskill Parks and Recreation, we have Kathy Montaldo. Fidelis Care is here. We have Christina Guzman. And the GDX Youth Ministry, we have we have Sharon Fielder. As part of this event, we were fortunate to receive translation devices that was provided by Peekskill City School District. We want to especially thank Dr. David Fine and Janice Reed for allowing us to use the devices. Our translators this evening, we have Mrs. Carmen Del Victoria Ortero, also known as Miss Del, and Francisco Calderon. Now we will continue with the rules of the panel discussion. Each panelist will have up to 3 minutes to answer each question posed by the moderators. Since we are providing Spanish translation, I ask the panelists to speak slowly and to enunciate. In your program provided, there is an index card, and we would like you to write your questions to the panel. Throughout the meeting, we will have Brianna and Jahira collect your questions to be asked to the panel. If you have your card ready, please hold up your card to be collected. Now I will invite Jahira to read the opening statement, after which I would like each panelist to take 1 to 2 minutes to introduce themselves and respond to the opening statement.
Peekskill is a unique and wonderful city. We are racially, ethnically, economically, and linguistically diverse. We are a community that derives its strengths from its diversity. We seek here today to strengthen bonds within and between of all of Peekskill's diverse population. Much of our focus today will be on problems associated with drug and alcohol abuse. These are issues that impact all of the various elements within our community, and thus we all have a stake in defining the problem and developing comprehensive solutions. A 2016 report from the Office of New York State Comptroller Thomas P. DiNapoli addressed the alarming rise in substance abuse and overdose and deaths in New York State. The following experts come from this report. Overdose deaths in New York related to heroin use reached a record high of 825 in 2014, a jump of more than 23% from the previous year, and nearly 25 times the number of a decade earlier. Deaths in which prescription opioids were a contributing factor also reached a new peak in 2014, nearly 4 times the level in 2005. Comparing the death rates in 2005 and 2014 for both substances, New York increased more than almost any other state for which such data were available. While drug abuse was once viewed as largely a matter of law enforcement, the increasing recognition that opioid abuse and heroin addiction should be regarded as public health and mental health challenges may help lead to more effective solutions. Elsewhere in the report, it was noted that 200 individuals from the Hudson Valley died from drug overdose in 2014 alone. Additionally, a report compiled for Governor Andrew Cuomo in April 2016 found that Westchester County was one of 15 New York counties with the highest opioid death rates. Based on data provided by the Westchester Children's Association, chronic poverty and unemployment are highly correlated with substance abuse. According to U.S. Census data, 48% of Peekskill's children are defined as low income or poor, and as much as 13% of the workforce is unemployed. Also, drug and alcohol abuse within families are often contributing factors to a variety of problems affecting students' educational outcomes. According from data from the U.S. Department of Education, 25% of Peekskill students are absent from school and for at least 10% of the school year. This may account in part for lower academic proficiency rates on math and ELA exams, as well as contribute to lower graduation rates.
Thank you, Jahira. Now I'd like to introduce Danielle Sacco.
Hello everyone, welcome to our town hall meeting on building a culturally competent community, a collaboration of the Peekskill Youth Bureau and the Peekskill chapter of the NAACP. I'd like to thank the NAACP for collaborating with us and welcome. I would also like to thank our esteemed panelists who will be introduced to you in a moment by our wonderful moderators. I would also like to recognize a few individuals attending today. Assemblywoman Sandy Galiff, City Manager Richard Lyons, Councilman Andre Rainey, Councilwoman Kathy Talbot, who is on our panel, Superintendent David Fine, who has been mentioned, and also our former Mayor Mary Foster. I just want to say I appreciate you all coming out on this very important topic. It makes me think of, it's a cliche line at this point, it takes a village to raise a child. It's used so often because it's a true statement, but it's also an aspirational statement. I had looked up the origin, I was trying to find the origin, and I actually found it comes from multiple different proverbs. Some of them are, a child does not grow up in only a single home. A child belongs not to one parent or home. And regardless of a child's biological parents, its upbringing belongs to the community. So the panelists, the staff, the board, the PAC Coalition, and the contributors, the vendors, and everyone here today are showing their resolve to be a part of that community upbringing for our youth. And now I would like to introduce our moderators for the afternoon, Kennedy Aspinall Morgan, Majesty Alexander, and Natonia Holloman. Thank you and welcome.
So we're gonna ask you guys up there just to give us a minute or two about who you are, what your role in the community is, and then we'll begin with questions.
Good afternoon. My name is Martin Daniels, and I am part of the phenomenal Peekskill City School District, where I have been a school counselor. Currently, I am an administrator, and I've been in the community for over 18 years as working with the community. And I feel that Peekskill is my home. I'm honored to be here today. In this great opportunity to share out and to let it be known that we are collaborating together. It's exciting to be here with youth, family, parents, and community leaders to discuss this very important topic. And I know this is just the beginning of great opportunities for us to share and to move forward. So I'm happy to be here.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Anthony Mitchell. I'm a retired narcotics sergeant from out of Mount Vernon, New York. Most recently, I just retired from being the honorary deputy police commissioner there. I have 3 children that have been in the school system. One has graduated, gone on to get his bachelor's and master's degree. He's an educator down in the city. I have 2 younger children that are a high school and in the junior high school. I am a stay-at-home dad since my retirement. My wife works. I don't know how many men can say that in here. I'm very much involved with the kids in the community. I do a lot of coaching with the basketball, done some things with the football, and I'm very interested in some of the activities and some of the, pitfalls that we have in the community and trying to correct them. So I'm just here to speak my mind and speak my piece.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Zaria Bailey, and I'm here representing the Youth Advisory Council. I'm the president of the council who is facilitating this event this afternoon. And I'm also a junior at high school, so what I'm really here to do this afternoon is to really give the adolescents of the community a voice in what happens in our government and also in the projects and programs that we have that we have coming up. So thank you.
Hi everybody, my name is Father John Higgins. I'm the pastor of Assumption Church, the big red building there right in the middle of Peekskill, near the Paramount. And our parish has the sad distinction of having hosted many of the funerals of people who have died from heroin overdoses. And my associate, Father Vincent Druding, was the one who presided over most of them, and couldn't be here today because he had a wedding now with a new date because of the snow day previously. But I want to express my gratitude to the Youth Bureau and to the NAACP for organizing this organization. Danielle said it very beautifully. It takes a village, and to come together and collaborate in this way is a great way to address this problem that we're just beginning to confront. And I'm honored very much to be here. Thanks, everybody.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for coming. The view from up here is pretty nice. My name is Kathy Talbot. I'm currently serving, I just finished my first year of my second term on the City Council. I also am a social worker by profession, and spent a number of years in the Bronx in directing a women's center that was inside of a big substance abuse treatment facility that had many different programs. And I know, having worked with a lot of the women and young women that came through that program, the complex amount of issues that really conspire to encourage people to use drugs and once on them, stay on them. So it's a subject that's near and dear to my heart, and I hope I can contribute today. Thank you.
My name is Officer Andre Wright. I'm with the City of Peekskill Police Department. I've been a police officer going on 24 years now. I came to Peekskill in 2000. Peekskill has shown me a lot of love, and I give a lot of love back. I take my job very seriously with a lot of fun. I'm currently assigned to the Peekskill High School. I'm also assigned to the Community Policing Unit with our information table over there with Officer Sproy and Officer Simmons. I enjoy working in the community. Mr. Francis knows also that you can call me at any time of the day. Dr. Fine, anyone knows they can call me at any time of the day or night. My phone never turns off, and I'm here to continue help. Each year I say I'm gonna retire for the last 3 years, but I come across a youth that I know needs some help, and I stick around. So thank you.
Hi, my name is Kathy Montalvo. I'm a recreation supervisor with the City of Peekskill. I started with the city many years ago and left to do the Peekskill celebration, and I'm very pleased to be back. Starting in September of last year, I'm back, and I'm glad to be a part of this panel. As a parent, I know very well the issues of drug and alcohol abuse in the communities, and have been to more meetings like this in my son's schools than I really care to imagine having to go to. But they're great. I've learned a lot, and I'm looking for you guys to give me some more information to help us create some more programs that would be helpful for the kids in the community as well.
So we're going to start in a second here. I just want to say again, thank you so much for being here, panelists, and of course, thank you to everybody who came out to support this. You guys may like me now, but you're not going to like me much in a minute, because I am the timekeeper, and I'm going to be flashing up these signs to kind of just keep you in line. We want to keep the answers down to 3 minutes-ish, at best, so that we can get through a number of questions and hear from everybody up on the panel. We're going to ask the question in general, and you guys can chime in if you feel that you want to contribute an answer. Don't feel like you have to necessarily speak on every single question. Okay.
Is substance abuse and alcohol abuse major issues in Peekskill? And if so, how are they impacting our community?
I feel we are no different than any other community. Every community that I've been in, and I've been a lot of places in this world as a police officer, have the same issues that we have. As a community, we have to pull together and bring all our resources together. But the key is we have to sustain those resources. A lot of programs start up with a lot of power and money in the beginning, but within the next 4 months or 6 months, that program is gone. We need to keep those programs going.
You know, I think that it seems to me, and I'm not working as a social worker here in Peekskill right now, but from what I do observe, with alcohol abuse and also a growing opioid problem. And I personally have been, unfortunately, to 2 funerals. Father mentioned funerals. I've been to 2 funerals. One of the son, a dear friend of mine, and 2 years later, the boy who died, his nephew died. So I know that and they're both from drug overdoses. So I think that Peekskill is probably like every other town and city in terms of the usage. And I think we need to really take a hard look at it, come together and really address those issues. Thank you.
To me, to piggyback on what everyone else has said, and there's no easy solution to this problem, but it's in every community. As far as what harm it does, you think about the crime, you think about young people, if their parents are hooked on drugs. I mean, it hurts the community inside and out, and we don't initially see all the issues until further down the line. Whereas if someone has a drug problem, you may not initially see it in the beginning, but you tend to see it through their children, through the people they interact with, and eventually it becomes a situation of crime. There become health issues, work issues, unemployment. It becomes a burden on the community. So yes, alcohol and drug abuse hurts the community. Now, as far as it being a problem here in Peekskill, it's a problem everywhere. So if we can eradicate a lot of it, because it's difficult to say to eradicate it totally, I think we're on the path to having a better and more successful community.
I would agree. I think it's important that we are willing to be honest about the challenges and the issues around alcoholism, substance abuse, and when we see the impact that it's having, or just even the inkling, we have to be able and willing to address it and not go into denial about it. So I think it's important that we continue to be here to have these conversations, but this is just a microcosm of what's out there. And so after we do this in here, taking the word out further into the community to share that we recognize that there are issues throughout our county, throughout our state, throughout our world as it pertains to substance abuse, because we've seen the impact, but being willing to address it and also recognize that it's real and that it's serious. And it could just take one incident or one testing that can really impact your entire life.
I think one particular form of alcohol abuse is fathers of families, and maybe it's not equal in every culture, but it seems to be a problem that I've come close to is fathers of families getting drunk on the weekends and committing domestic violence and threatening kids, and then waking up the next day not remembering anything. And the kids' lives are traumatized by it, and so that's a real problem. It's quite prevalent.
I think everybody here has said very well, and that it's not just the alcohol or the drugs. It pervades everything in our community. It goes way beyond that one person doing the drugs or the alcohol. And so we do need to come together as a community to, see what we can do and to try to keep families safe, to keep kids involved in positive activities so that they don't fall down that path as well.
To piggyback off of what Father Higgins said and what everyone has said on this council, it does start at home, and the reference to alcohol abuse and drug abuse in the family and in parents does have a great effect on children and adolescents as they go out to the world and experience it for themselves. They get to see that this is a different kind of outlet instead of talking to an adult or talking to a trusted family member that could give them a different way to experience and voice their opinion and their feelings for what they're experiencing at home and in the community, in school, wherever they may be. So yes, I do believe that there's an issue in Peekskill, but I also believe that it's an issue in the county, in our culture, and what adolescents are experiencing today.
I just want to say, really, I'm going to shut up. I do want to say though that one of the reasons that we entitled this culturally competent community, we understand that this is an issue, as you guys have eloquently spoken to, that cuts across race, ethnicity, gender, age, religion. All the members of our community suffer, from issues of substance abuse in their families, and it is a community-wide issue, and exactly as you have all spoken to, it's something that we need to address as a community. So we're going to try to, figure out what some of those solutions are, and one of the great things is that we have some of the people who are already involved in trying to do that here, to talk to when we finish as well.
Do you believe that substance abuse, drug addiction, and alcoholism is a disease? How does your perception of the problem, disease or not a disease, affect the programs and policies that you initiate?
Well, let me say.
I do believe alcoholism is a disease, and myself, I believe that drug abuse also is in that category. From a social, health point of view, you have all sorts of problems that stem from those uses that affect society, and not the least of which is, you need to have money to buy illegal drugs, and then there are illegal drugs, and then people wind up going to jail, and one could talk about the inequities in the justice system for who gets picked up and how many people of one race or another wind up behind bars. So that, I think it's a disease with tremendous implication for society and culture. And I just want to make a point that's, I guess, off this point. I was talking to someone before about recent methadone clinic that got approved and put into our community, and there was such an uproar about putting this methadone clinic in our community that you would have thought there would have been gangs of marauders up and down our street. Of course that didn't happen. And, we have to understand that this is all of us. It's my family had alcoholics in it, and I'm sure most of you all did too. Drug abusers and so forth. So we have to understand that, this isn't them, this is us. That's it.
What I believe, drug addiction and alcoholism, one is legal, one is not legal. So, you want to classify society legalizes alcohol. So you have to start questioning, well, why is that? Is it about profit? Is it about, we can go on and on. Either way, there has to be something that has to be done about it, regardless of whether we classify it as a disease or not. we're waiting, to wait for a classification is not going to necessarily fix the problem. The problem is we have to hit it right at home. We have to look at why do people tend to abuse drugs? Why do people tend to abuse alcohol? Is it their chemical makeup? Because some people can drink it and some people can't. It's not just as simple as putting it on, well, this person's drinking and this person tends to overdrink. It's in the chemistry, so it breaks down to individual. And that's something that we have to look at. But all in all, the community has to come together and start recognizing when they see something that's unfamiliar in an individual, when they start reacting in certain ways. How can we help without being offensive? What can we do? But there has to be communication. In a community like this, I think the communication should be a little bit more open. We should be able to sit down and discuss things and issues a little bit better, regardless of race, religion, physical desires, sex, and all of those things. We're human. That's the one thing that we do have in common, that we're human beings. And some of us are not perfect. None of us are perfect. We are going to make mistakes. I know I have in the past. But I just think we need to communicate a little bit more. We need to come up with solutions that not just fits one demographic, but all demographics.
I would agree with what was stated, as well as when we look at alcoholism and substance abuse, if it is a disease, there is a connection between mental illness and the abuse of substances, as well as any time we try to take on something because we are experiencing discomfort, dis-ease, if we want to kind of break down the word. I look at dis-ease. I'm not at ease with something, so I'm looking at something to substitute it to help me deal with situations. So when we start looking at it that way, then there's something that we must do, because by introducing a substance, alcoholism, anything along those lines to help you tolerate and deal with challenges, and you become addicted to it, that creates additional challenges. We must be willing to be honest. We must be willing to also know our own tolerance of things. Everyone cannot tolerate certain things. Some of us are more susceptible to addicting and substance abuse, shopping, eating, you name it. We all are subjected to certain addictions, and they are diseases. And we must be honest about them and seek the necessary support and assistance and give it to help those who are challenged by the disease or diseases. I'm not looking at you. Why are you looking at me?
If I could just interject, I think that the question is getting at, and I think some of you have addressed this, but I believe the question is trying to get at the approach in terms of how do we treat how do we approach the problem? Do we see it as a legal issue for punishment, or do we see it as a disease or an illness that needs to be treated? I think that's sort of where we're going. I think that was the intent of this particular question. Some of you have addressed that. If anybody has any thoughts on that aspect of it, otherwise we can.
I think it's a combination of both. You do have situations that individual has been helped on several occasions and continues to use. You have to start wondering, especially when people are suffering because of their abuse of a certain alcohol or drug. So then it does go along the lines of this is what you want to do, and then you tend to commit a crime or abuse women, elderly, or youth in the process. Then you have to start looking at the crime. Look, I don't think any of us up here are doctors that can identify whether this is actually a disease or not a disease. But what we can do is tell you through our experience of what we've seen and shared, what we suggest is some of the problem and what some of the conclusions could be. There is no easy solution to this, and a lot of it has to be based on individual situations. So it's not an easy, as Officer Wright said, it's not an easy answer to this.
Definitely not. It comes back to a lot. You've heard the old saying, "You made your bed hard, now you got to lie in it." A lot of that times is us as a community to make that bed a little softer. Most of it is by choice from the very beginning. If we educate as much as we possibly can, just like we do our youth on a daily basis, we can only give them the tools and show them how to get there. We can lead you to the water, but we can't make you drink it. Once you're beyond that stage, at some point, as a police officer, I have to protect everyone in that community. So I have a job to do, whether it's removing you from that community or saving you with something else. But as Mr. Mitchell said earlier, it's once you get to that location and you've done it several times, what do we do with you from there? The information and the task is there for you, but you haven't achieved that. There is no one answer. There will never be a quick fix overnight. It's going to take time in the whole community to do that. We need more programs. It comes back to programs. And also back to the law portion of it. To be mandated, you need to be arrested. After that point, to me, in my eyes, it's a little too late because everyone knows me personally. My goal is to keep you out of jail. I didn't take this job to put you in jail. I took it to keep you out of jail. I can't stand it. I don't like it. It's a uniform. I got tools. I got to do what I got to do. But my job is to keep you out of jail. So I don't want you to get to that point to where I have to lock you up for a judge to dictate that you have to go to treatment. We need something in place that judge can just stand up and say, okay, you're mandated, but if you don't attend, there's other precautions that he can take and other things he can do to make you go to those things. So it does come back to the law section. That's it.
Well, I just want to, say that I think people go back to it because that's sort of part of the nature of an addiction, that, for anyone in the room who ever, tried to go on a diet or tried to give up cigarettes or any of the other things that may not have some of the stigma that illegal drugs have, that very often it takes several times before, if ever, in terms of dieting for me, but certainly it took me 3 times to give up smoking. And, and I swore that I was never going to go back. So can you imagine if that was something that was illegal, all the additional problems I would have? And can you imagine if, in addition to all of that, it's, I had ongoing stress in my life from a variety of socioeconomic issues that are many times not my fault at all. So it just gets very compounded. And the other comment that I want to make, because I saw this happen back in 2007 or so, the agency I had a very robust substance use prevention program that was funded by SAMHSA, the federal government, and they had New York State programs, and they had needle replacement programs, and all those kind of things to minimize and to educate primarily people to try to catch early people who are on the path to what could be a serious drug problem. And the money got pulled on all of them. That whole section of the agency shut down. So there was no more prevention. Well, just saying.
Just to add to that, as we sit back here and we look at people that abuse alcohol and drugs, one of the things, I remember as a young child coming up, don't judge me until you walk the mile in my shoes. People ask why, instead of just looking at a person because of their addiction, ask why they may have gone down that path. For every reaction, for every action, there's a reaction. A lot of times these people have stories, and until you sat down with someone that has these addictions and really listen to their stories, you really don't understand. A lot of people don't want to deal in reality because reality is painful. So I think sometimes what we have to do is sit back and ask why, as opposed to what the final outcome is, because that's just the cause. That's the cause after the fact. That drove me to this point. And I think a lot of the situations are economic. Some of the situations are family-wise. Some of them are emotional. But these are things that we have to look at. We can't paint abuse of alcohol and drugs with a broad brush. Again, I can't say it enough. A lot of it is individual. And we don't understand a lot of these situations of why a person wants to abuse it. A lot of times they just don't want to deal in reality.
But then I agree with you. And I think then that does go back to a couple of things. First of all, cultural competence and being able to look at us in our unique states, and who we are, as well as also realizing that when there is substance abuse and when there is alcoholism, the residual impacts, because it's not just that individual, the abuser, but then it's the outbursts of that, or the outflow of that, and how we have to interact and service all of these individuals to make sure that we're educating and supporting, as well as trying to prevent, as well as welcoming individuals back, okay, in a non-judgmental factor. So it really it's incumbent upon us, who, and I do this, who have it together, as best we can, realize, but for the grace of God. Because sometimes even with all of our strengths and all of our abilities, we have stressors too. And we go to our safe net, So I think it's really important that we look at the cultural aspect of it, the mental aspect of it, as well as the residual impact, so that we can service and better meet the needs of others.
I would like to add, and I know this already has been spoken, but many times people have turned to alcohol abuse and drug abuse to escape a reality that they can't face on their own. What needs to happen is there to be another outlet for these people not to only turn to these substances, but to turn to someone who they can trust in, so they can have an outlet and not have to go to alcohol abuse, and not have to go to drug abuse to affect other people, because it ends up affecting the community, and it starts with the family, and it starts with children going to school and seeing this happening again, and they repeat what they see at home. So, yes, this is a disease. It does have to be dealt with treatment, but to go as far as saying that it's a disease would, yeah.
Yeah, I think the young lady said is true, in that, looking at a person who is already the alcohol and drug abuser, we need to give them support and help them. But one of the keys to all of this is giving kids and people support before, making sure they have outlets, making sure there's positive things in their life that they can focus on instead of the negative things like drugs and alcohol, so that we prevent from having to go down that road. I think that's a big factor.
Who was affected by alcohol abuse in our community, and in what ways? Do you believe that there are some or more affected than others? If so, who and why?
Well, I'll say this. Everyone is affected. Everyone. Law enforcement is affected because they have to make arrests sometimes that they don't want to. They become social workers at that point. Youth are affected, women, elderly, because they may get abused by someone that abuses alcohol or drugs. Jobs, because people can't get up to go to work or don't do a good job. They compromise the safety of their other workers. Everything is compromised when you abuse drugs or alcohol. Our youth are then given a false sense of being a man or a woman because they turn around and say, well, my mom drinks alcohol to this point. So they think that's all right to some degree. What we have to start looking at is our tomorrow. We can't just get caught up in today, but we need to set the example for our youth so that tomorrow will be a brighter day. So I tend to say that everyone is affected. City government, because they have to turn around and put more funds into programs to address these concerns. So we need to educate everyone. And we need to listen to our young people to see what their feelings are on these things. We tend to try to direct and tell them what it's supposed to be. It's a new world, people. These young people are more intelligent and exposed to more things than we could ever imagine. Some of the stuff that I'll be learning from my kids, I'll be like, wow. Wow. So I think that the conversation has to open the door to young people. It has to open the door to different segments of our community, regardless of demographics. We have to get away from racial demographics. We have to get away from gender demographics and understand that we're human beings and we all, at one point or another, have similar problems. And we have to come together to address them one problem at a time.
To kind of go back to what he was saying, everyone in the community is affected by drugs and alcohol. From the child who has to stay home to take care of the younger sibling because mother or father is incapable, once again, to the parent who feels incompetent because they can't provide, so they turn to drugs and alcohol because they can't find a job in the community or they can't take care of their family, to the workers in the community who can't rely on people to do their jobs when they're affected by these drugs and alcohol. Different situations do extend to different families, but it comes back to the same problem. And to direct this problem at the source is a better way than to generalize and stereotype and project a stereotype onto race or ethnicity or sex and depend on that to make a decision.
Agree. First of all, very well said, and you hit on. You really hit on a number of factors, and you really painted a picture. It certainly affects everyone, and I do think some people are more affected than others. I think that you're more affected if you have less resources available to you. If you, there are people that can afford to go to an extended clinic. Very often, these days, our health coverage is not there to really support any length of time. I did an internship at New York Presbyterian Hospital in White Plains, and the whole thing was about how much insurance anybody had and how quickly you could patch them up and get them back out. And we're talking serious. This was a locked unit that I worked on, and it was serious issues. And you were sending people out with, basically fix them up with the right medications, and it was mental health in that point. So I think that if you don't have the support, financial support, home support, peer support, and if you don't have any of that, I think you have a harder time. And I think that cuts across, by the way, most ethnicities.
That community organizations, healthcare providers, law enforcement, churches, and others have a role to play in addressing the drug and alcohol abuse in our community? If so, which organizations do you believe are currently most effective in addressing the problem, and what more do you think needs to be done?
I believe we all have a role to play in it. If an individual has a drug problem or an alcohol problem, and let's just say I come across them and I don't get along with that person or I can't connect with that person, it's my job and my duty to pass him on or direct him in the right path with someone else that can talk to him. I look at it the same situation as if myself and another officer is dealing with someone and that individual doesn't wish to speak to me. I can't take it personal. If he's getting a better relationship with another officer, Officer Pam or so forth, then I should allow that person to talk to Officer Pam. Our main goal is to fix this problem at that specific time. Make it go away, make everyone happy. It's not about what I feel individually, taking it personally or anything like that. We gotta get out of that. We have to let our kids be kids. give them time to be kids. My personal opinion, I think we're letting our kids grow up too fast. We're subjecting them to a lot of things that they don't need to see, a lot of adult conversations that they don't need to be in at that particular moment. There's plenty of times, and as a community, we have to grow and we have to come together and give them things to do as young teenagers and young kids. Because if there's nothing for them to do, they're gonna get in some trouble. They're gonna turn to the drugs, they're gonna turn to the alcohol. You have parties, unsupervised parties. There should be no unsupervised parties for any teenagers or any kids. Zero. Because kids are gonna be kids. They're gonna do certain things. So we have to watch our kids a little bit better.
I would like to say, just based upon what we're seeing evidence here today, and when you look at this expo and all of the stakeholders who are currently in this room, it lets us know that the community is serious and recognizes the challenges that are here. And you have just such a cross collection of stakeholders that are invested in the community and that can also help meet the needs. So if we continue to come together like this, it's not just incumbent upon one group, but all of us. The word in here is community. So all of us as the community, from education to healthcare to civil activists, coming together to say we recognize we need to do something and we are here to support. That's where the onus is. It's on all of us.
I agree so wholeheartedly. We have to leave our egos at the door, though. We become, if I'm the mayor, I'm running the city, the ego's got to be left at the door. Grassroots organizations, religious institutions, council persons, religious institutions, businesses, young people, the school system. Everybody has to sit at the table. And you have to come down with some serious conclusions. And you have to be real. We can't sit here with this fake, like things are not happening. In someone's household, it is happening. In someone's playground, it is happening. We have to get ahead of the game. We tend to react as opposed to being ahead of the game and having vision. We should be seeing some of these things because it's happening across the country. New York City, it happens, and then we echo it 5-10 years later. Why? Why aren't we recognizing what's going on down there? So the thing is to have a vision, a clear-cut vision to see what we can do, not only for those that are involved with drug abuse and alcoholism, but for the kids that are affected by it, by the women that are abused, by the men that are abused, by the elders that are abused. It shouldn't be happening yesterday, today, and then again tomorrow. We should have solutions to it by then. But the only way we can do that is if we sit down in dialogue, straight, real dialogue. Leave the egos at the door.
I'd also like to say that I think, it's kind of like in your household. Mom and dad have to be given the same message. We all need to come together and give out the same message so the kids get the same message. This is not the behavior, this is not what we want them to be doing. We're here to help if they happen to fall into that, category. But we give the message that this is not a good behavior. There are other things. We're here for you so that, hopefully, if we're all on the same page, we'll keep them on the straight path. And those that we can't, when we have have to have the resources to help them get back into the right path.
A lot of opinions that I hear on the council today is a lot that I get from my own parents. My mother is a nurse. She works in the city, in the New York City District for Education. And my father, he was a police officer. And I get the same conversations from them, but in two different ways. My father, who is less in depth, and my mother, who has no secrets and nothing to hide. What I think the adolescents of today need is there are no secrets. There's nothing that they should feel that they have to hide from their parents or from the adults that they trust. Having a kind of step back, let your children be children attitude gives an opportunity for them to think, well, I can't talk to my parents about this, or I should be able to hide this from them. where there should be an open dialogue so any conversation or any topic could come up. So they can have this trust where, okay, so my parents taught me this and the community taught me this thing, maybe I should step back, or I know how to hold that back because everyone has told me, giving me the right information for me to make my own decision in life. And in the end, our children are going to make their own decision because our parents aren't there all the time. And we have the right tools. So it's up to us to use them, but also for there to be open dialogue so there's no secrets to hide.
Just an example of so a fella who came knocking on our door some time back, and it's wonderful. He's touched on all these organizations mentioned in the list of the question that was just posed. He's been helped with community organizations, the church, healthcare, police have arrested him, and social workers. He's been in Jan Peak, and I'm happy to report that this past week we've got him off the street, we've got housing for him, and it was kind of a victory that this question that's well poised, well placed, indicates that no one of those organizations could have done it alone. Everyone working together got this nice fella a home, and he's back on his feet again. We'll see if he falls down, and I would hope that those same organizations are there to help him with his drug addiction and alcohol addiction problems.
Be more pertinent to another question, but I think one thing in terms of we talk about talking to the youth in the community, do we know how the youth communicate with each other? I think that, solutions going forward really have to include the ways that they communicate. Everybody's always on one of these things, and that's how they communicate, even if they're in the same room with each other. So you all saw that, right? So I think that we have to make sure that anything that we do includes a social media aspect.
How do you address the issues of substance abuse in our increasingly diverse communities? Do you believe that there are social and cultural issues that have to be accounted for when conducting outreach or structuring programs dealing with substance abuse? For example, does substance abuse and the road to recovery present differently for white, African American, Hispanic, and LGBTQ youth? If so, how do you or your programs deal with those differences?
As I said before, each case has to be dealt on an individual basis. There's no one shoe fits all. So, when we say black, white, some of the resources may be divided that way, but that's what we have to start to realize when it is. I know in the communities that I've been a part of and the young individuals that I've worked with that may have had drug abuse problems or alcoholism problems, I approached it as that problem, not whether they were white, black, Hispanic, alien from space or whatever. It was a situation where I sat down and said, this person has a problem. And I tried to direct them to the resources that were there to help them. Now, we can get caught up and think that, well, the white guy gets more, or the black woman gets more, or this one gets more. I think if we sit down and look at the problem and help resolve the problem, the community gets better. When you start putting it on white, black, and all of that, and I think it does happen, don't get me wrong, but we have to start looking at the long term, the vision. The better we do, the better our community does. If you want to deny someone because they're black or because they're gay and they have a problem, believe me, it's going to come back and bite your community. So I think we have to get away from that and start dealing with the issues at hand. If a person has a problem, let's get onto those problems. Let's sit down as a community like we're doing right now and get it all out on the table. And let's start talking about it. And then let's start coming up with solutions to deal with it. There is no, believe me, as a former police officer, the worst thing I've ever dealt with was not a drug addict, was an alcoholist, with somebody that was drunk. They are nasty when they get drunk. The drug addicts come along peacefully, matter of fact, most of the time. It was the alcoholic that I had the most problems with. So there's no easy solution to this, but alcohol is legal. It's legal. So, you got to look at society and start understanding what's going on in society. We have to take a closer look what's going on and why certain things are legal and not legal.
In my experience, in my 23 years, it comes back to their ethnic background in the community. The treatment has to start in that location. It's based on what that individual needs and where they are in your community. What do you have to offer them? Not everything works the same for every individual. It's all different. It goes back to, I'll just throw in there, a domestic violence incident. There's certain cultures that's acceptable. But here in the United States, it's not. But they come to the country from wherever they're from, and it's acceptable in their country, but we have to educate them and show them that it's not. The treatment for that is also different. So as adults and people that are involved in it, we have to educate ourselves on different ethnic backgrounds and so forth, so that we understand where that individual is coming from and what problems they are dealing with. There's certain Korean things that if I ask a question, I'm not supposed to talk to the female. She's not supposed to look at me at all. And then the husband gets mad, why am I talking to the female? Well, she's the victim right here, so I need to get her information. But if I don't know that in their culture, I don't get the answers. So we have to educate ourselves with that also.
I do believe that there are cultural issues that impact various, how these issues present in various cultures. And certainly the least of which is there may be a language problem. Way to communicate, and glad you brought that up, ways to communicate in what is culturally sensitive are really very important to know in terms of dealing with Hispanic community or African American community, white community, all of the different, when it comes down to somebody has a problem, then that one person has the problem, sure. But I think that behind that person is a whole set of assumptions and knowledge and learning and attitudes and everything that makes up their culture. So I think that has to be definitely factored in. Interestingly enough, I just noticed in looking up some facts and figures for today that there was a recent study done in Duke University that does not support the perception among many people that African Americans, regardless of socioeconomic status, are the bigger abusers of drugs. It really supports that Hispanics are. And if you look at what's happening in the Hispanic community today, or in our nation today, I think you will see the pressure is certainly on the Hispanic and immigrant community, not just the Muslim community. So one might think that maybe moderated by religious upbringing and views, the use of substances may be different among those groups, but certainly those are culturally specific, I think, and it's my belief. And, we have to really, because it's about communication, and when you're talking about communicating, you really have to know how to communicate with that particular person. Whether it's on social media, that's one part of it, but part of it is you just have to have some basic understanding of where that person is coming from.
It says, does the road to recovery present differently? And some of us are just conditioned by certain and different norms, just how we were raised or certain experiences that we've had in our lives. The abuse of alcohol or substances is that, but how we go about recovering from that abuse could be impacted, and our road to get to become healthy might be different based upon just who we are. So we do need to have additional stakeholders a part of our community and be non-judgmental in the road to recovery, because my recovery might not look like his recovery, might not look like your recovery. But as we're on the road to recovery, don't judge me. Don't say, well, you should be done by now, because no, it doesn't work that way. So unless, as my brother pointed out, unless you've been in my shoes, you don't know what other ingredients make me who I am. So I think that when we look at the umbrella of abuse, it's that. But how I become the whole person that I need to be might take some detours. And I might need others who've been in that same situation to help me along the way, because I might not understand it, but my ego can't get in the way either in making sure someone is getting the help that they need.
And just to add to it, I mean, in society, we got to look at what's going on. When you listen to the music and when you see the rappers and the artists abusing drugs and alcohol, our kids are watching that. And, you know, I'm not for sitting down and shutting down music and all of that, but what I am about is regulating it and talking to your kids about it and what it really means. And I don't blame any particular genre in terms of music, because you see it in country, you see it in rock, you see it in R&B, you see it in hip-hop, you see it in all types of music, that the artists themselves abuse alcohol and drugs. And there's something to say about that. In this day and age, when we've been exposed to so much of the personal lives of the celebrities, the politicians and things, you begin to see what they do, and then you're telling your child it's not good, but the president does it. You know, you're telling your child it's not good, but Jay-Z does it, or Snoop Doggy Dogg, you know. So I think the dialogue has to come from us at home, us in school, when we talk to our youth about these situations, about their music. I mean, how many parents actually talk to their kids about the music they listen to? Not to shut it down, because that's the worst thing you could do. To have dialogue about that music is the best thing you can do. Education. There's so many things in our society that hasn't moved, including in the way that we teach our children. We've been teaching in the classroom since I was a kid. And I mean, that might only been about 5 years ago, but we have to become innovative. We have to, again, I say, have a vision to what we would like to see society and what our kids will learn. Let's not get stuck on what my parents came from the generation where they used to sit down, I want your life to be better than mine. Well, that should have never changed. But some of us are looking for immediate gratification. And we got to get away from that and start thinking about our kids and what's best, what we would like to see them. That's what's best for them. That's a dialogue between each and the kid and their parents. But we need to have that dialogue.
One social and cultural factor that makes a big difference in the approach is whether or not someone is documented or not. Someone commits the indefensible crime of driving while intoxicated. The pathway for an undocumented person is incredibly different than the person who's documented, let's say. So if I don't have papers and I get arrested for drunk driving, there's a good chance I'll be kicked out of the country and my kids will grow up without a father. And in another aspect, I mean, there are resources available if you have papers, and we gotta applaud our school system. You have papers, you don't have papers, you're going to school up through up through 12th grade anyway. And I know there's no simple solution, but when you're kind of discerning the road to recovery, as it says in the question, one of the questions is, do you have papers or not have papers? And it does make a significant difference in what's available to you.
This question is a multi-part question. We only started with one of them. I just want to follow up here because since this has come up, I think we should just ask these two questions here as follow.
are your programs, literature, and websites that address the issues of substance abuse provided in Spanish? Are programs including substance abuse, recreation, summer employment, etc., open to all children regardless of their immigration status?
Well, I don't have a program. But what I will say is this. I think this is one of the areas we fall short because we don't have enough. And we don't put enough into, let's say, the Kylie Center. I think there needs to be more put into that. And I think you need to get a YMCA, PAL, or Boys and Girls Club here. You got between the ages of 13 to about 18, and Dr. Fine, correct me if I'm wrong, approximately 2,000 kids. And the Kylie Center may be able to hold about 400, maybe 500 with programming. Where the other 1,500 kids are going to go? You know? So my point is this, and for you to get a PAL or that, there's grants, there's programs that you can get these facilities here, a youth facility, to address concerns. Again, I'm talking about vision. It won't happen today, but we need to be starting to prepare for tomorrow.
In the school district, as you can see, we are sensitive to the diversity of our community. So just recognizing the fact being here today and being able to have translation apparatus so that individuals could hear or be part of. We all could do better, but I think we are aware of the fact that, yes, we want to meet the needs of the entire community of Peekskill. And we are looking to broaden that opportunity and to partner with different stakeholders that are here so that we can meet the needs of making sure correspondences are in English and Spanish, as well as those who we partner with in our district. Do they have individuals who are bilingual that can support the needs of our children? We strive for that, and not just our children, but our families. So we are sensitive to that, and we are striving to make sure that we are helping all who are in need.
I would like to add, off base a little bit, but working and being employed by the city of Peekskill and working for the police department, I am currently assigned to the school district. Dr. Fine, forgive me, but I've been allowed to sit in on a lot of their meetings and listen to a lot of the things that they talk about. What Ms. Daniels is saying, I can't say as, I'm going to call myself an outsider for this purpose, is that is true. Everything that happens in the school district, there is always someone saying, do we have it in another language? Can we meet the needs of the individual kids? We have rules and regulations in the school district that are on paper, in black and white. Each time that I've been involved in something, the rules say this, and this happens to that individual student, but there's always someone in that room that's an advocate for that student and says, I think we should go this way with this as an individual basis. Let's call Dr. Fine and see if that's okay. And I can tell you, these honestly, it's changed a lot of the rulings that are specifically on black and white. So the interest in the school district is for our kids at an individual basis, especially with alcohol and abuse and things like that. So each case is handled differently and as an individual. I just wanted to add that portion on.
And in answer to the Kylie question, we are always looking to expand Kylie programming. As I said, I just came back on the Recreation Department in September, and that's one of my roles is to work with the Kylie program. And I'm hoping to expand some programs. The Kylie program is great. Julius and PJ do a wonderful job with the resources that they have there. We need to expand that and to grow it. We also, through the school district, there's the LIFT programs. We have regular recreation programs outside of the Kylie program. So I think there is a lot of things going on in the community, but certainly we could do more. And people have, one of the pieces of paper I have on the table over there is, what programs do you like? What programs would you like to see in the community? If we can, facilitate that, we would love to create some new programs. What we do, we feel we do well, but, kids, as it's been said, kids are changing. Their needs are changing. Their interests are changing. And, we hope to be able to follow that as well and provide. There's other programs like Embark and different things out there for the kids in the community as well. So I think that, you know, there's a multi-prong approach to getting kids involved in different activities, and you know, we need to continue to look to improve those.
How are we doing with translating things into Spanish and doing some outreach?
We do translate a lot of our materials, not all, but we do try, and you know, especially programs that you know, we feel are very pointed, that we need to make sure that we reach into the different communities and get them involved. And so we have it, the Little League put their flyer in English and Spanish. I have that on the table. One side's English, the other side is Spanish, to make sure that those kids, you know, all the kids in the community can get those services. If they, you know, they want to be involved in that program, they can, you know, parents can understand what's going on. Parents come in all the time, and we help, you know, walk them through the different programs that aren't. Kids that want to apply for summer jobs, we're happy to have them. You know, all Peekskill residents are welcome to, you know, apply for the different jobs. We don't have a lot, but you know, we're open to the kids of all, you know, all around from the community to come in. And the Youth Bureau, sure.
And I see you, brother. And there's a number of programs here and a super dedicated staff. And I know there's always more that we can do. So, but don't forget about this place.
Well, let me say this. And I think all of those places, the Kylie, the Youth Bureau, I think they're wonderful. I think we need to invest more, though. I'd like to see a girls' volleyball team come out of the Kylie Center, or an AAU basketball team for boys and girls, or even a double Dutch team, or a soccer team. I mean, if we're going to address these things, we have to invest. If you want to spark the interest of our young people to keep them away from drugs and crime and gangs, you've got to invest. It can't be just enough. It has to be more than enough. So you got to invest. If you want to change their tomorrow to make a better today, you've got to invest. And we can't just, and I think all of those programs, the Youth Bureau, the Kylie Center, are wonderful. But you got to put more into it. You can't just satisfy the bare minimum. You got to put it in there where these kids feel like they want to go there, like they see something.
On that, and I would just say we have to do more, not you have to do more. You know, we have to do more, because I think, you know, there seems to be a tendency to want to sort of say it's your problem. It's our problem, and I would love personally to see a Boys and Girls Club to come here, but in fact that takes serious community involvement. The community has to raise a certain amount of money. Somebody has to be the leader or get a committee together and drive that initiative. The Girls and Boys Club don't provide the funding, they provide the programming. So that's something I think, I mean, if we have the place and we have the people to raise the funds among the community to do something like that, I think that would be a marvelous thing, because that's a good organization.
One of the things I'd like to see we suggest in terms of future businesses that come here, that we give them a prerequisite to bring their business here to engage with the youth, and possibly donate to the Youth Bureau or a PAL or a Boys and Girls. Make it a prerequisite. If you're going to bring businesses here for the long term, we want this community to be healthy for the long term. So, you know, ask them about a commitment to our youth and what would they would be willing to do. I mean, that's just my suggestion. Don't get me wrong.
But I think also, as we are talking about the commitment, we also need to hear the voice of the youth. What do you need? What are we missing? I'm not going to say what year I graduated from high school. However, it sure is not in this era. What is needed for you today so that we can say we are meeting your need? I see someone mouthing something over there. So I think, and as we're sitting here and we're engaging in these conversations, this needs to be the beginning of a strategic planning so that we can say we are doing something to meet the needs of our young people, because time is marching on. And we want to be able to say, we did hear you, we are hearing you, and we are here for you. So I think that's important as well.
I hear a youth song.
To go back to the initial question, and I love to talk to hear that everyone's able to branch out to youth and see what we want to do and how to get this into the community. But there's a phrase that I heard on the road to recovery: there's nothing new under the sun. Everything that we have or every problem that we're facing, it's been done in the past, and it's been done in a way that maybe hasn't been proficient or hasn't been taken care of properly. Basically, one of the things that we really need to get into the community is a mental health state where you can go and express your opinions and feelings, and if you have problems that isn't physical but more mental, and you need to help and talk to someone, or to be to kind of diversify that out into the community to bring a different perspective. Also, there needs to be a place where someone can release their tension, their stories, so they can talk about what's happening in their lives and personally, so they could be at peace. Because what this forum really here to do is bring peace to the community from problems that we do see. And we see it in our youth, and we see it in our culture, that people are angry, that there's a kind of fear and anger that we have today that has been there in the past but hasn't been addressed. So it's great to come in and bring a boys and girls club, or to bring in a YMCA, but to bring in a place where you can express what you feel in a way where you're in a safe space, and what you do and what you say matters. And you can feel like what you do and what you say is going to make an impact, and it's going to matter to someone other than you. It's one thing to speak, but it's another thing to be heard.
Okay. This is a question from the audience. Are the local organizations here making the effort together to keep our youth out of trouble in the later hours? For example, recreation and art programs until late, maybe 10 p.m. Most programs end around 8 p.m., then some of the youth go to the streets after that. Are more efforts being put together and in collaboration to do outreach taking place?
Well, I can tell you that at the Kylie we are open later than that, and they do try to, have programs. Some of the things that we do are contingent upon use of school space, and there are other, custodians need to have time to do what they need to do as well, so that we're, can't be in there until all hours of the night. It's a good question, and something that we can look at, and I think needs to be explored, and see what we can do to help with that.
Concerned, we do have extended day programs. We do have the LEAP program. We have also clubs and activities. But when I hear after hours, when you're talking after 9 o'clock, the school does not. We might do the 24-hour. What's it called, Dr. Mark? The 20 sleepathon. That's right. The stay awake-a-thon. The sleepathon. That's what happens when you get a certain age. The stay awake-a-thon. But on an ongoing basis, no. But I think that might be something. Again, if the youth are looking for extended hour activities beyond the traditional extended hours. How does that work? How do we fund it? How do we make it happen? That could be ongoing conversations. But we do have some activities.
Well, again, you know me. After a certain time, there's nothing but trouble in the streets. So we have to put a limit on how long we're going to allow our youth to hang out in the streets. After party is the exact same thing. Let's say it ends at 11 o'clock. We're not coming until 11 o'clock because we know at 11 o'clock there's 200 people out. What happens after that? Somebody starts shoving, somebody starts pushing. Things get out of control. So it's about us controlling the time frame of things. After 10 o'clock, there's really nothing that any youth should be outside in the street for. Growing up, you need to get your rest and get ready for school the next day. He's 17.
What's the role of parents, and how do parents come together too and provide some security? Yeah?
Absolutely. You gotta, again, say what you want. Not everybody plays sports, so we have to get other programs that don't involve sports. Some people like to read books. That's fine. Some people like computers, build programs. I gotta go back when I was growing up. We had home ec. We learned how to sew, how to cook an egg to get ready for the future. We don't have those programs anymore too much, so we need to go back a little bit to show the kids also how to survive later on.
There also, when I was a kid around here, there was a Y, and they would have like a Friday night dance because teenagers like to get together and hang out with each other. So that kind of thing would be great if something like that came back around. But maybe kids don't like to dance anymore. I'm very old.
But that needs to be central location. You can't have something in one end of the city where only certain kids attend this type of program. It needs to be neutral. So if somebody from the east side wants to come on the west side, they're able to do that. They're able to meet in the middle of it. A lot of parents say the same thing. It is what it is. In certain locations where it used to be a high crime rate or whatever, they don't want their kids going. They want them in a neutral place. And now the kid says, all my friends are down there. So now you're arguing with your parents. So as a community, we have to look for a neutral place for all the kids to gather when it's after hours and things of that nature.
You know, to add to that, and I think we gotta reward our kids. You know, we're talking about with the possibility of them doing the wrong thing, but there's a possibility of doing the right thing. Just the mere fact that these young people sitting right here is a credit to that. So when we get into these discussions about it, yeah, I'm a parent, but I also know and I trust that my kid is going to make the right decision at time. Not every time. They will push the limits. Don't get me wrong. I did. Why wouldn't they? You know, and I think we all do, because you're trying to figure out the unknown. But that shouldn't stop us from allowing them to be kids, and that especially when they get to a certain age. I'm not saying you let the junior high school kids hang out till 11, 12. When you got a 17, 18-year-old that eventually is going to college, look, in 6 months they're going to college and you're not going to be able to stop them anyway, or they're going to get a job. One of the things I think that we need to start looking at, and this is, again, when I say vision, is looking at a vocational school. Because not all our kids are going to go to college, and some of them need work to help their families. I'm just saying.
One of the things that I hear a lot in the community, especially from the board here, is they're talking about youth having a different thing to do besides education and coming to after-school programs. When the community hears youth, what I feel like they're gearing this more towards middle school and elementary, but the programs that I see in the community for the high school are not extensive and really don't gear themselves to high schoolers in a way that they would interest them. So yes to programs that are going to run later, but do something productive that's going to interest adolescents to the point where they'll want to stay later. So in the community and in the high school, I see a robotics club, which I wish was more extensive, or a dance team that came out, and really it wasn't just for the high school, but people who don't go to high school. There's private schools in the community. You have people who go to, say, Kennedy, or they go to schools outside of Peekskill, but they live here. So there should be programs for them to do as well. And if there are programs that came out and said, we're here, we'll make this affordable for you, because not everyone can afford to stay after school because they have a job to go to. Or they can't afford it because their parents don't make as much money as the next one. Or they can afford uniforms, to have teams that will provide, that has a sponsor that says, hey, we'll provide this uniform or we'll provide stuff for you to do. But to run later, to gear towards the high schoolers, they'll be the ones that late. So you have other projects like photography, videography, robotics. You have dance teams, troops that could come in, and that kind of stuff, just to gear it towards the high schoolers so they can have something to do after school as well.
It's a question from the audience. There is factual information on the negative effects of fathers not being in the home. Do you believe these negative effects can be solved? For example, role models programs, male-focused mentoring programs.
I say it can be solved. In high school, we actually have a program that's Check and Connect. For some individuals that don't have a father in the home, I am one of those Check and Connect personnel. So it is possible to touch base with certain youth that don't have a father in the home and make sure that you can connect with that individual and move forward from there. And also just let that individual know, just because you don't have a father in the home doesn't mean that you can't be successful or that you have to act out a certain way. Mothers, my mother was the exact same way. I give her a Father's Day gift and a Mother's Day gift. It is what it is. And as men, we will never, ever be able to do what a woman does on her own as far as raising kids. Listen. Yeah, so, exactly. But there is a possibility to overcome that, and we just have to let the youth know that we're here for them for that.
You know, to add to that, and I think the school does a wonderful job with that, but we need to do more within the community, through the churches, and connect with the school, because once that child leaves the school, it's back to the same old thing. So I think we need to reach out to the grassroots organizations, the youth bureau, the churches, and try and connect these mentoring programs together so that these kids have continuous support, not only in school but in the community. It's just a thought.
I also want to say that we are aware of the meeting all inclusive, so we are mentoring to do a My Mother's Keeper initiative here in the city of Peekskill. And it's not a school initiative, it is a community initiative, so that everyone can have the benefit of a positive individual in your life, a positive male individual in your life. So we are aware of that, and it is important, and so we are on that in discussion in regards to that.
This topic could actually hit me personally because I have seen both sides. I've been fortunate enough to have my father, but also unfortunate to not have my grandfather. And men, like I know little of, but they take it in different ways. Either they'll go to the point, to either extremes where they want to be nothing like their father, or they lash out and they are exactly like their father in the end, even though they don't intend to be. I do believe that there are father figures in the community because, like we said in the beginning, it takes a village to raise a child. But it's to pay attention to that child who is unfortunate enough to not have their father figure or their parental male figure in their life. Because both girls, I do believe young girls, they need their fathers. And young men, they do need their fathers. And you have figures in the community like Mr. Francis in the back, or like Mr. Price, who I've actually been able to personally know. Or you have Mr. Well, actually I call him Gary. He's the head of the NAACP, and they're there. I think that you need to be more outspoken to say we're here and we do help train young men to know how to be men. Because if you don't have that parental or that father figure for that young boy, then they don't have anything to base themselves off of. Because mothers could be both mom and dad with you. It's nothing like having that father figure there.
Be remiss if I did not say, and our youth representative here. However, it's a dual effect, and not only do men or boys need a male figure, young girls need them as well. Because that is so important for young women to have, especially young women who are raised in single parent homes. If you do not have that type of relationship, then you don't know what a positive relationship looks like. So it's very important as we're building this environment and through this expo, how great it is. I believe that the Youth Bureau at one time had a father-daughter dance. And to be able to do those types of things, or, you know, fathers come to school, or not even just fathers, but important male individuals in your life come to school. So I don't want to say it's just males that need positive representatives. We all need positive representatives because we all want to be in, to show what healthy relationships look like. So I just want to put that out.
Programs that I just want to mention that are going on and that do go on annually in Peekskill. One is Men Who Cook, which happens right here, and it's a wonderful event. It's a fundraiser, but it's also anybody who comes to eat that wonderful food, and you know, hopefully kids come and they see guys doing wonderful cooking. And the other is Men Who Read at the library, and I think that's still, and boy, if there was ever something that, you know, you never know when you're going to connect with somebody, and you never know when you're going to have an impact on somebody. And the third quick thing I want to say is sometimes you don't have to even do it in a direct one-on-one. For instance, we have Councilman Rainey, who everybody in town knows, and now they know he's a councilman. You know, and to me, that's like such a powerful role model.